I'm Scott Weichel. You're listening to My Kind of Country here on Fish Creek Radio. My guest tonight is a true great vocalist in country music, and his early recordings on Capitol were straight Bakersfield sound all the way. He's won multiple awards in the country music industry, and he's a member of the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame. Today, he continues to record and perform the very best in real country music. It's my pleasure to welcome Tony Booth to My Kind of Country. Tony, how are you today?
I'm fine, Scott. My Kind of Country sounds like a show that's tailor-made for me.
Well, I think so, and you certainly get a lot of airplay on my station, that's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that.
My show is all about the real country music, and you are certainly fit the bill. My goodness, I've been listening to your music for many a year.
That's awesome. You know, I'm headquartered down here in Texas, where the classic country is alive and well, but a lot of people don't realize that there's country music lovers all over the United States, and I used to tour all 50 states. And so I wasn't at all surprised to hear that your station was located in Michigan, because that was a great, all that migration from the South. I'm sure you know all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The auto workers business, and they carried their music with them. And I've been in Detroit and a lot of different places, so there's a lot of good country fans up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Country music is very popular here, and of course our show reaches worldwide, and we've got fans all over the world. We do a rebroadcast of the show after we do the original one, so that people in other countries can hear it at a decent hour, and we get hits from all over Europe and England and New Zealand, and oh my goodness, just about everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a station in Denmark that also broadcasts our interviews on our show. So your interview's going over to Denmark too.
Yeah, I've been to Sweden. I haven't made it to Denmark. But...
Well, at least your interview will anyway.
That's good. Yes, maybe that'll help me out.
Absolutely. Well, I want to go back to 1967. Your first big single was "Wishful Thinking," and I think it was released under the name of Johnny Booth. Is that right?
That's right. Just to show you how the thinking was, in 1968 is when we actually cut it. Was the hits of '67 was the theme of the album, and the guy that produced it thought that Tony didn't sound very country, like a country name.
Really?
So he renamed me Johnny, and it was just for that one album, and then we went back to the original. But that was, that's the way they thought back then. It's kind of funny. But
yeah, it's interesting.
I was a newbie, so I went along with the program.
Yeah, I guess you got to do what you got to do, right?
That's right.
Well, when did you sign with Capitol Records?
It was about probably a year or so later. One of Buck Owens' people was out scouting for talent. I mean, they used to do that back in the day too.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have to go to Nashville and pound on doors. They was looking for people. But anyway, this guy come out and liked my singing. And he introduced me to Buck, and Buck liked me, and was the start of my career, actually.
Well, you had a lot of big hits on Capitol Records, and I certainly remember one of the big ones, "Keys in the Mailbox." I think you had a number one on that. I think yours is probably the definitive version of that song.
I believe that mine sold the most records, of course. Like when Freddie did it in '59, the audience wasn't as great for country music as it was when I come along.
Yeah.
In '73, so yeah, that was that and Keys, Lonesome 77203, and Cinderella are all songs that people still want to hear. So.
Yeah, they're staples, and any band that's that's worth its salt knows these songs and does these songs. I had a country band for years, and I go right down the list of your greatest hits, and we did them all. They're mandatory when you're playing a honky tonk.
Well, we tried to do just straight ahead country and something that the weekend bands would enjoy playing, and that, I think that's what's buoyed those songs all these years, is just the fact that the bands kept them alive. I mean, I always use this as an example. I was a huge Glenn Campbell fan, but you couldn't duplicate his music with a four-piece band.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear a lot of bands doing Glenn Campbell music. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
But my songs were pretty basic country, and people could play them.
Sure. Now, and when you were on Capitol, did you work with a lot of the other Bakersfield sound artists? And I know you, of course, Buck Owens, or some of the other ones you worked with too.
Well, it was basically Buck because we had like our own little self-contained show. I'd been on the stages with Anne Murray and stuff like that, but it was just brief things. But my basic deal was the Buck Owens, Susan Ray and Buddy Allen and the Bakersfield Brass. We had our own little road show.
Okay, gotcha. Well, you had some awards from the CMA and the Academy of Country Music back in that time, and you won an award for Car Wash Blues too, the Jim Croce song.
Yeah, it was an ASCAP thing, which most country music was through BMI, and so we kind of got off the reservation a little bit there with that one. But that was a fun song to do, and I still get requests for that, and we didn't know whether it would go over or not because it was such a deviation from the other stuff. But people seem to like it. It did well here in Texas, I know.
Do you still play that one live?
Oh yeah, sure.
Wow, that's great. That's pretty cool. Well, one of the songs, you did a fantastic version. I was familiar with Merle Haggard's version of it, and he never released it as a single, but you did, and it's called Irma Jackson. Tell me a little bit about that. And
right.
It's kind of a racially themed song, back in the day when that was taboo. It's kind of changed now, but back in the day, how was that received for you back then?
Well, it was kind of about what they expected. It got a lot of negative reaction, but that was the idea behind it, because Merle wanted to do it, but they was afraid it would harm his career. But they figured a new guy that's trying to get some attention, that would be a good way to do it. Of course, it wasn't good attention, but it was attention.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd heard, like, radio stations got death threats and stuff. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
How far we've come in such a short period of time,
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, later on in the early 80s, you were touring with Gene Watson.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about working with Gene Watson. He was on my show a while back. What a great guy to talk to.
Oh, yeah. I was a bass player early on in my career, and I just really enjoyed that. And before I started with Gene, I toured the country with a play, the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And so that was far removed from the music that I was used to playing.
Right.
And so whenever an opportunity to go to work for Gene come along, I jumped at it, and I played. I was Gene's band leader for the next 12 years, and finally broke off and went back to resume my own career.
Well, I think your fans are glad you did.
I was just kind of laying low for a while.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to do that. You got to regroup a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
I totally understand that. But I'm glad you're doing your own thing again. Who are some of your major influences when you were growing up and listening to music and forming your own style?
Well, it'd have to be Ray Price. Was the main guy. And, of course, there are a lot of other guys that I liked, Jones and Carl Smith and Marty Robbins, all those guys. But I really loved Ray Price. And till the day he died, I mean, he was my favorite. And I got to know him later on, and we became friends. And he was just a huge influence on me. I mean, just in a lot of ways, not just his singing, but the way he conducted himself and stuff. I've always been just a guy that just kind of stands there and sings. I don't do jumping around and blow set cannons off and smoke machines and stuff. So, I mean, even back when I was younger. So,
well, amen to that.
But Ray just stand there and sing, and George Jones, Merle Haggard, those guys, they let their abilities carry them, and that's what I always tried to do.
Well, you're right on the mark there. Ray Price was so professional. I was blessed to see him several times in concert, and he never lost his voice. And
no.
And just always professional, like you said, and all dressed in suits, and come out and meet the fans, and just top notch all the way.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're right. Country music is about the songs. It's about the vocalists. It's and the steel guitar, and it's not about all the other, running around the stage like a bunch of wild jackasses.
Oh yeah.
Give me a guy with a guitar that doesn't move about 3 inches from the microphone that can sing a good country song. You got a fan out of me, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we need millions more like you, and we'd all be in business again.
Amen to that. Well, one of your songs that I play very frequently on my show is called "Is This All There Is to a Honky Tonk?" And this, I think you won an award for this one, didn't you?
No, I don't believe so. There's a funny story attached to it, though. Back when that song was first written, I was playing at the Palomino, and the story was told to me that they dropped that song off for me to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I never even got to hear it in the next. After Jerry Naylor had released it, then I was told that story, and it bothered me for 35 years. And so when I signed with Heart of Texas Records, that was the first song that I said, I want to do that. And then we actually named the CD after it. So I've had several awards in the last few years, but I don't recall getting one for a song particularly. I was inducted in the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame, and a male vocalist for the American Western Artists, a couple of other, things like that. But I never got anything for a song, I don't believe.
Oh, okay. I'd read you won a award from the Academy of Western Artists for that song, but
Right. Well, I won a deal from the Academy of Western Artists for a song, but it was the thing I did with Daryl McCall and Curtis Potter. It was the Survivors.
Oh, okay. All right.
So.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. Not much of a.
I could be wrong too.
I just kind of live day to day.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Sometimes you don't remember that stuff, And,
right.
Well, on that subject, tell me about the Survivors. You guys have done 2 albums together now. This is with Curtis Potter and Daryl McCall, right?
That's right. Yes, and we really enjoy each other. We have a lot of fun on stage together, and we don't get to do near as many dates together as we'd like. We're all doing our own thing, but we're leaving Thursday for Nashville, and we'll be doing it this weekend in the Midnight Jamboree this coming Saturday night. So that's one of our get-togethers, and we try to get together about half a dozen times a year.
Well, that's great, man. That's powerhouse country music.
We all 3 kind of sound alike, so that was part of the fun of recording. We swap verses and we swap harmony parts, and it's just kind of a trick to see if people can tell which one of us is singing at which time. That was kind of the idea behind it.
I like that.
We're all 3 bass players, and we're all 3 huge Ray Price lovers.
All right, well, there you go.
Yeah.
No wonder I like those albums so much. Well, folks, I want to remind you can go to tonybooth.homestead.com. That is your website, and your music is all available. You got lots of great albums there, and, of course, your hits are there. The Survivors albums are there, and, of course, Heart of Texas has their website, hillbillyhits.com.
Right.
And then you can always pick up the music there, and, of course, it's available all over the Internet, too, but those are the 2 main places to get it.
My CD Baby and even iTunes stuff's on iTunes.
Yeah, so. Yep. And
we're pretty well represented.
Absolutely. And a lot of your great albums, the LPs are still out there, too. A lot of people are going back to vinyl, and those are still out there, too, which I love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you bet.
We play a lot of our stuff right off of vinyl on the show, and that works great for me,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's right. I didn't know why they went back to vinyl, but I thought it was pretty cool that they did.
Oh yeah, well it sounds good, and I think a lot of it's nostalgia too, for the people that grew up listening to records are getting they're getting older and they want to go back and relive that again, so. I guess anyway. Well, tell me, do you have some new albums or new music in the works?
Well, we're always collecting music, songs. I'm always listening to songs and stuff, but right now we don't have anything planned. But we just kind of, we don't have a plan really. If he used to call up and say, "Hey, get something ready for a new CD," but Tracy's quite a collector of country music artists, traditional country, and he has a lot of singers on the label. So we just all kind of take our turn as far as the next CD when it's coming out. We don't have a regular release schedule or anything like that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, there's a great stable of artists. A lot of them have been on my show. Justin Trevino is great, and Amber Digby. And,
Oh yeah.
man, I'll tell you what,
Awesome.
Jay Cooker, good music, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, Jake's awesome.
Well, listen,
You're
Tony.
playing all the good people.
Oh, absolutely, and we're going to keep playing them too, including yourself. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I wish you the best. And we'll hope to hear some more music from you as we go down the line. But we're going to play one from you right now. Tony Booth, thank you very much for being on My Kind of Country.
Well, thanks for your part in our success, Scott. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. Tony Booth on My Kind of Country. I'm Scott Weichel here on Fish Creek Radio.